Well, good evening. Glad that we're able to be together, and I do want to make a special thank you to the congregation here during Megan not feeling so well. We appreciated the contact, the cards, the messages, the calls, and the questions that were asked about how she was doing. I'm thankful she's doing better now and able to be back with us tonight. And so we are blessed to have a loving church family. But that's really what it's all about, loving each other and getting through the difficult times. And so we're blessed to be here. Appreciate now that we have Scott and Melissa working with us, and I'm looking forward to that. So the last couple of weeks that we're together, I'll be teaching this week and next week, and then Brother Alan Webster will close the quarter out. But tonight, we're talking about what does the Bible say about our role in life. I don't know if you've ever gone to a holiday party and played a game that had different roles that were assigned to that game, and maybe you were told this is who you're going to be in the game, and maybe it's not who you wanted to be. Maybe you have a preference of my favorite character in this game is that person, and you don't get that individual. Growing up, when we would go on retreats with Forest Hill, the South Haven Church of Christ where I attended as a child, we would often play a game called Mafia, where you get a deck of cards, you have all of these different cards shuffled out to people, and there was a very clear understanding of who wanted to be who. No one wanted to be just a regular citizen in that game. You wanted a role that was more important than that. And oftentimes you might know of the machines that are up on the screen here from an arcade, or you've seen pictures, or maybe you've even gone to an arcade before. They're not as popular now as they used to be, as consoles and other things have become more handheld. That's what you can play games with now on the television screen. You don't have to go to an actual building and pay money to go and play games for a little while. You can actually buy your own and put it in your house, and you can play whatever you want. There are so many different choices. I've always been partial to playing football games based on the NFL. I'm a big Steelers fan. And you know, when I play Madden, that's what they call the game, I am the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you know that? Do you know that if I want to make a move and trade for somebody and get a better player on our team, nobody questions my authority? Nobody calls me into the office and says, "Why would you do that?" Do you know how many Super Bowls I've won? Not any real ones, but the fake ones, I'm doing pretty well. I can play that game, and for an hour or so, I can escape and become the main character of whatever story I put myself into. And I began to think that there are so many games out there, and very few of them are depicted as you not being the sole focus of attention. That you don't sit down and you don't load the game up and then see, all right, you're going to be this side character that has no part in the story but for 5 minutes, and we hope you enjoy playing the game. No, if you play a game about a superhero, you're the superhero. It's you. And as long as that game goes on and as many times as you want to play it, you can be the main character. And unfortunately, a lot of that mentality has creeped into society on the real side of the world. There's nothing wrong with playing a wholesome game and escaping for a little while. There's nothing sinful about that. But in our world, we've actually had some terms come up now, and one of those terms is called main character syndrome. And it's a term where someone starts to fantasize about the fact that they are the main character of the story that they're living in. And they go around and basically live the life as if the movie's all about them, everyone else is a side character, and it's all their story. And in fact, on our social media pages that are rampant with this term now, you can find this phrase, main character, used over 5.3 million times on a video site called TikTok. You can find it used over 215,000 times and 36,000 times on certain other websites and social media places, and on Instagram, a popular photo site that you can go and like other people's pictures. You can find the term main character on 76,000 posts, and I will almost guarantee you that that number is wrong. All of them are, because when I wrote this, it was last year. And so I didn't think in time to go back and double check the numbers, but the stats that I found back then were staggering. There are so many people in our world that believe this life is all about them. And if it's not about them, you just need to see it a little bit clearer, because, oh no, it is. We have a 4-year-old. He thinks the world is all about him. So do all children. But I don't want to go and eat there. I don't want to watch this. I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to do this. Sorry, I don't remember you being put in charge. And yet to that little 4-year-old, he thinks, well, if I don't want to do it, I'm just not going to have to do it. And mom and dad will eventually realize that I'm right and they're wrong. And yet so many people, adults, grown adults, young children, teenagers, still say that exact type of phrase when they say, I'm the main character of the story. And so tonight, when we think about what our actual role is in life, I want to remind you of something I was taught when I did theater in high school, and it was that there are no small parts. There really are, though, you know. I did a couple of plays where I was the main character, the lead of the play, and had several lines that I had to memorize. I did plays where I was a background character. I did one play where I was backstage. It was a musical, and I don't sing, okay? So I know that there are small parts. If there weren't, everyone would be the main character. But there is a lesson in that. Not everyone can be the lead. Can you imagine what the books would look like that we have from a fantasy perspective if every single character had to be the main character? How confusing would it be to keep up with all of the different storylines that are unfolding as each character has to be the center of attention? Is our world any different? It's really not. And so tonight, as we begin studying together about this mindset, about what our role is in life, I want to point out in the first place that this is not our story. I sometimes will go into Adam's room and he will say, let's play dinosaurs together. I say, okay. I sit down and we start playing and I say, now the dinosaur does this. And he goes, no, Dad. No, Daddy, that's not what the dinosaur does. He's actually going to do this. I'm sorry. I was unaware. And he says, now they do this. And it's very clear whose story we're in. It's not mine. It's his. And in that little world that he's got and that he's building, whatever he wants to do, he's going to do. When I read in the Bible who created the world and effectively created the story that you and I are living in, I don't see anyone else's name other than deity equated to who created this world. In the beginning, God. Not Michael, not Adam, not anyone else. God created the heavens and the earth. And when I think about that phrase and think about the weight that that phrase truly carries, it should bring me to amazement to think that someone is powerful enough to create all that is around me and all of the things that I haven't even seen in person. I've seen pictures of the Grand Canyon. I've seen pictures of other things in this world that people would say, oh, you've got to see that in person. I was blessed to go to see Niagara Falls in person when I was 8 years old, and it was so cold that half of the falls were frozen. I didn't even know they could do that. But I didn't make that. They didn't make that. The things that have happened in this world, all of the natural wonders that we have, God's the one that gave the opportunity for any of that to be done, any of that to be made and created. It was God's hand that made this universe. And if we were to stop right there, I could just simply close the class tonight by saying, you and I are smaller than we've given ourselves credit for. There are small parts, but that doesn't mean that they're not important parts. In the beginning, God created everything that you and I see. He created the light. He created the waters and dry land. He created the firmament and the animals, and all of creation was attributed to Him. In Genesis 1:31, when God saw all that He had made, it was very good. And God said that He was able to complete creation and He rested on the seventh day. But something that is even more humbling is the fact that you and I are not original creations. You know what I mean when I say an original creation? You know, you've heard the phrase before, there's nothing new under the sun. We've talked about that from a biblical perspective, but in reality, you know that the movies that are being made today, the sports that we watch, nothing's really new about them. They're recycled from stories that were told long ago. Stories that were told years and years and years before movies were ever told. The ideas, the mindsets, the things that we can see, there's nothing new under the sun. But sometimes when we have that main character attitude, not realizing what our role is in life, we forget that when the passage is said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that wasn't said with a, because look at how great I am. Look at how impressive I am. You and I look at Genesis 1 and verse 26 and 27 where it says, God said, let us make man in our image. Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. I've had people back and forth tell me who I look like to them as far as my parents are concerned, who Megan looks like to them, who Adam looks like to them, and it's different answers almost all of the time. And the only reason that they're able to say that you look like so-and-so is because I'm biologically related to them. I have some type of tether to them. I don't look like Scott. Scott doesn't look like me. He's probably thankful for that. I'm not tethered biologically to him. We're not blood relatives. And when you and I think about being made in the image of God, the likeness of God, that means that I am not special simply because I exist. And that's been forgotten. Just because God made me, and just because that's a wonderful blessing, and yes, human beings, the creation of God, are special beings, it's not because they exist. It's because of who made them. It's not my story. It's no one else's but God's. And even down to the very fact that I exist has nothing to do with me and everything to do with God. And while I don't want you to think that the creation of mankind is insignificant, I want you to think about it this way. 2 points. We only exist because God wanted us to exist. And 2, we only have the characteristics that we have due to God making us in His own image. Everything that I have belongs to someone else. And as a child, that used to annoy me. Oh, you look just like your daddy just then. Well, I'm not my dad. Or you look just like your mother just then. I'm not my mother. And now as I've gotten older, I realize that's not a detriment, that's a compliment. That's a wonderful blessing to have someone say, you remind me of that individual right now. That should be my mindset every time I look in a mirror, every time I see someone else that is created. You look like your Father because we're made in His image. And so it's not my story because in the beginning, God made everything. But it's also not my story because I needed redemption. I know that the storybooks and movies and television shows that pit good versus evil oftentimes will have the heroes of the story struggle. You know, if you watch a crime show, they're not going to solve the crime in the first 3 minutes of that episode. They know that that's not going to sell very well for the population that they want to watch it. And so there are always twists and turns and all of these struggles. And, oh, we thought we had the guy right there, but I guess that's not the one that we're looking for. And I never thought that it would be this person. They struggle back and forth because it would get very boring very quickly to see someone show up at the scene and say, I know exactly who killed them. And they'd be right. It doesn't make good television. When I struggle, spiritually speaking, it's because of my inadequate ability to remain faithful from the time I was born until the time I died. I am not perfect. I've never been perfect from the time I reached that age of accountability, knowing what was right and wrong, and that fateful day where I chose to do what was wrong instead of what was right. I ceased to be whole until who? Until God made me whole again. Jesus is the hero of our story. That's Philippians 2, verses 5 through 8, where it tells us, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in our hero, Christ, who being in the form of God did not consider it to be robbery, him being equal with God, wasn't something that he grasped for and held on to as some type of saving grace, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of men. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even to the death of the cross." But you know, Satan is the villain, and he tells you and me, he tells me all the time, "Michael, this is all about you. Do what you want." It's not about anybody else. It's about what you want. And he tells all of us that. You don't want to go? Don't go. You don't want to do what's right? Don't do what's right. You want to do something that's wrong? You deserve to have fun. What really is the harm in doing this activity? What really is the problem? Why does God continually try to hold you back? There's nothing wrong with some harmless fun. And we've all bought into that at one point or another. We've all allowed for that discussion to go the wrong way. It's why we needed a hero. Because sin had entered into the world. And there was no remission without the shedding of blood. Christ's blood. And you talk about being even smaller. I can't even redeem myself. You hear it all the time in sports. Can he redeem himself? He threw an interception, or he missed a wide open layup that he had. Can he redeem himself here? I can't redeem myself where it ultimately counts. I can't spare my life without the aid and help of someone else. And the saddest part about all of that, with the villain that exists, is the very fact that I have found myself, as well as every other accountable person in this room, in this congregation, in this city, in this state, in this country, in this world, I have often found myself aligned with the villain. You want to talk about a double cross? How heartbreaking is it for God to look at the very things that he created in his own image, the very people, in his likeness, saying, "We don't really like what you have to offer. We're going to go another way." As if it's an actual choice of saying, if we like this better, that's the right path for us to go. In John 8 and verse 39, we have people say to Jesus that Abraham is our father. And Jesus said, "Well, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who's told you the truth, which I heard from God. Abraham did not do this. You do the deeds of your father." Then they said to him, "We were not born of fornication. We have one Father, God." And Jesus said again, "If God were your Father, you would love me. For I proceeded forth and came from God, nor have I come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Because you are not able to listen to my word. God's not fooled by you. You are of your father, you're correct, but not the father that you think you have. No, verse 44, you're of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He doesn't force me to do them. He doesn't call me up and say, I've got leverage on you, and if you don't do what I say, this is going to happen. I find myself wanting to serve him. How backwards is that? But what I've noticed in my short amount of time on earth is that every time I've found myself specifically, as well as everyone else, wanting to do what Satan does, it's because I wanted something. Whatever it might have been, for whatever reason I wanted it, I convinced myself enough that I deserved it and stopped serving God and decided to serve the devil, and it was a choice. The lusts of your father, the desires you want to do. Murderer from the beginning, he doesn't stand in truth. There's no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources. He's a liar and the father of it, but because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin? And if I tell you the truth, why do you not believe me? Therefore you do not hear because you're not of God. Stop kidding yourselves. God's not your father, nor is Abraham. And I love how the Apostle Paul in the book of Galatians would deliver a gut punch to that southern group of churches there in Galatia by saying, Abraham's not your father. You're not of Abraham. You're Hagar's. Which that would have been an insult for them to hear that. To be told, you're not Abraham's seed, you're Hagar's. Hagar's child had no inheritance. And for them to be told that was no small criticism. That was not a simple throwaway of, well, you know, you're more like Hagar than you are like Abraham. That would have been devastating to read. Because what they were serving, what they were doing, Abraham was a big part of the old law and the old covenant. Father Abraham. You mean we don't have claim to him? No. Jesus tells these individuals in John 8 the same thing. You don't have claim to the Father either. Not the one that you should have. You have the claim to the Father that you want to serve. As we think about main characters or the roles that you and I have in life, instead of making it about us, there are characters that we read in the Bible that we do need to make our full focus look towards and be about. And the first one would be Christ. I said he's the hero of the story. The hero of the story is always the main character. That's how that goes. And here is Jesus Christ, a lamb slain before the foundations of the world. What does that tell you? He was the main character before the world even existed. It was always going to be about Him coming and redeeming us. And when you and I think about what we would have without Him, we sometimes sing the song, without Him I could do nothing. Some versions say I could be nothing. That's the truth. If I don't have Christ, if I don't have Jesus as my Savior, serving Him, following what the New Testament tells me about how to become a Christian, how to stay a Christian, then I do really have nothing. Nothing of note. Doesn't matter how wealthy I might become. It doesn't matter what I accomplish in life. It doesn't matter how many friends I have. It doesn't matter where I go in life. If I don't have Jesus, it's all vanity. Isaiah 53 is all about Jesus being prophesied to come to the earth and spare us. And I didn't deserve it. You didn't deserve it. But I got it anyway. It always feels nice when you get something for free that you didn't earn, that you don't deserve. There's a little boost for you when you maybe go to dinner with somebody and they say, no, tonight's on us. Oh. Well, I really appreciate that. I really am thankful that you would do that for me. Because there was no pre-agreement that was made that said, hey, we're going to dinner tonight and we're buying. And you leave that night feeling loved by that individual, that they would do that for you and be kind in that way to you. We feel loved, however small, about someone buying dinner for us. How much love should we feel about Jesus dying on the cross for us and keeping us from that punishment that we had racked up for ourselves? I've seen shows sometimes where the person will say, hey, anything you can fit in this circle, this box, whatever, I'll buy for you. And it's usually at an electronics store. And so that individual's timer is started, and they start running down the aisles, and you can tell who's thought this through and who hasn't when you watch something like that. Because I watched a video one time where someone started picking up a bunch of small items and just throwing them into that little box that they had available to them. And when they went to go get the bigger items, they realized, ooh, wait a minute, I didn't think this through. In order to put this down, I've got to take those things out of the box and stack, and that's going to take away from the other things I'd like to go get. And then I've watched people who almost seem like they brought measuring tape to that store the day before, and they measured everything out and memorized the measurements and said, all right, we're going to start with this TV, we're going to set it here, all right, now we're going to go get that other thing and we're going to set it there, and that's going to kind of create an opportunity to have a shelf. Then I'm going to stack things along that shelf, and that's going to create another shelf. And you watch the end of that, and they have stacked something so high and so massive, and it shows the total, and you think, they really got the most out of that experience. And you see the other person who kind of walks away in defeat. Even though they were still blessed and got items, they didn't quite get what they planned because they didn't think ahead. They put all of those things in that box knowing someone else was going to pay for it. Could you imagine if that person had been tricking them? And after that little timer ran out, he said, do you really think I was going to buy all that for you? Really? Do you know how much that costs? Do you know how much you've racked up as far as the total of all of those items would be? I'm not purchasing that for you. You don't deserve to have that bought for you. And yet I went through the proverbial store of life and racked up a ton of debt and sin, and Jesus showed up at the counter and said, I'll pay for it. How can I ever not make my life about Him? How can I ever look at life and say, I can do it without Him? No, I'm helpless without Him. Have no hope. That's what Romans 5, 6 through 8 is all about. When we were without hope, when we had no opportunity to do it for ourselves and fix it and be redeemed, Christ died for the ungodly, verse 8. That should give me a pep in my step and an understanding that all that I do going forward is no longer about me, but about Him. But He gives me a second character to really be focused on, and it's the church. We're told in 1 Corinthians 15 and verses 55 through 58 to abound in the work of the Lord. And when we talk about that word abound, we can't abound if we don't put the church's needs over our own needs at times. We've talked a lot in this class specifically about Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47, the best formula for early Christian living that we have ever recorded in Scripture for us. And what they did was put other people's needs ahead of their own. They sold as people had need their goods and possessions. Oh, you need this? You need it more than I do. I'll take care of that for you. You need such and such? I've got the ability to get that for you. Here you go. And then we come to Acts chapter 5. And we find a couple that for whatever reason had decided to act like what they were bringing was all that they had gotten for the land that they sold. And the Apostle Peter there told them it wasn't a sin for you to keep part of it back. That's not where the issue is. Some people treat that passage in Acts chapter 5 as if God is saying, if you don't give me all, you're not worthy of anything. Peter said, no, while it was yours, you were in control of it. And if you needed to keep something back for whatever reason it might be, you were fully capable of doing that. Your problem was when you brought that to our feet and said, this is all that we got for that. Lying about what you had actually gained from the sale of that land. That's why you're going to die. That's why they lost their lives. They put their own desires, their own needs above being upfront and honest, and evidently it seems that they wanted some type of ego boost by saying, this is all that we had given. Everything that we got from the sale of that land we've brought. Aren't we selfless? Aren't we sacrificial? I know of a widow who gave more than them, and more than likely a lot less than them too, financially and monetarily speaking. But the attitude, why she did it, is what was important. We find a change for some reason with Ananias and Sapphira, but great fear came upon the church in Acts chapter 5 and verse 11 after they both died for what they had done. I don't know what the room temperature, so to speak, would have been that day when those bodies were carried out, but I would imagine not many people were in a joking mood after that. That word abound in 1 Corinthians 15:58 means to be in excess, superabound. You and I cannot do that if we come to life with a, I will do whatever fixes and suits me up. Whatever helps me advance, I'll do it heartily. But if it doesn't have to do with me, I'm going to just kind of avoid it. That won't work. We always need more people denying self, picking up a cross, following Jesus and saying, what does the church need done? I will do it. No matter what it is, no matter what time of day I might need to come up and do it, if I'm capable and able, I'm coming to do that. That's how we understand our role in life, and that the church is more important than even myself. But there is a third group that we find recorded in Scripture, and it's the lost. That's what the church is supposed to be seeking and trying to find the opportunity to show them the saving message of Jesus. We were told and commanded to go out and seek and save the lost. Jesus also had said that that was part of His mission statement in Luke 19:10. It was His whole mission statement. And in 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. If you and I want to truly benefit the community that we live in, it will start by seeking and saving the lost. But the saving message is not about our story. It's not about all of the things that you and I find to do in our lives. You know, when Philip helped the Ethiopian eunuch become a Christian, the eunuch went on his way rejoicing, and then Philip went into the city and said, hey guys, guess what I just did? I went and found this Ethiopian eunuch, and he was struggling with some Bible passage that he was reading in the book of Isaiah. And you know what I did? Helped him with it. I helped him see the truth. And that naturally led to a Bible study about Jesus Christ. I preached to him Jesus from that passage. And then I took him into water and I baptized him for the remission of his sins. And doesn't that impress you all? And Philip just went and kept preaching. And when Philip preached to the eunuch, it doesn't say he opened the Scriptures and preached to him, Philip. It doesn't say he opened the Scriptures and made it all about himself. He made it all about Christ, with the sole purpose of that eunuch becoming a member of the church. That is how the role is supposed to be played by you and by me. Being Philip, not the one with the tax collector and the publican, the Pharisee, who was saying, I'm so much better than everybody else. Even this tax collector, oh, I'm so much greater than he is. God be merciful to me, a sinner. That was the man that was accepted. The man that by every other standing in life would have been hated. Really? Humility. Realizing it's not about me, it's about someone else. Very quickly as we begin to close, we have to humble ourselves in order to be successful. You know, Christ came to the earth, we didn't deserve Him, and we have to apply the same humility, Philippians 2 verses 1 through 4. But this is God's story, and we do have a part to play. There's no small parts. Yeah, there are. We've mentioned that tonight, but that doesn't mean the part that I'm playing is not important. I will never be the Savior. I will never be an apostle. I will never be one of those individuals that I read about in Scripture who was directly told by God what to say, what to do, and where to go. But I can be a Barnabas. I can be a Christian. I can be someone who takes what was said and tells it to other people. And even though that means that I'm not them, I'm still doing something important. And my role is still valuable to God. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been redeemed, and neither would y'all. None of us would have had redemption if we weren't important to God. If the value that He saw in us was non-existent, we just would have died. This is God's story, and we do have a part to play. But Jesus said that salvation that we were going to be given was worth His own death. He didn't want to die. Luke 22:41 through 44 tells me that. He wasn't excited to die. He wasn't counting down the minutes till He died, but He died anyway. And so, are we going to put the proper focus on my role in life, on your role in life, realizing that it's not about me, that I can't hold the church hostage when things don't go my way, that I can't hold God hostage when things don't go the way that I think they should go in life? Will we be involved in the work of the church that's required by Christians? So many things that we classify as needs. I needed to be at the ball game. I needed to get that assignment done. I needed. But really, in reality, I can fix those statements. You wanted to go to the ball game. You wanted to get homework done. You wanted. And the work of the church didn't come first when it should have. And we wonder why some of our parents are watching as their children are leaving the faith. Perhaps it's because the parents raised those children to believe that it was all about them, because that's what the parents thought for their own lives. It's all about me and never about Him. We need to not be so arrogant to be unaware that it's not about us. What's my role in life when it's game over? When the story ends and when my credits roll on the screen, what happens? Where do I go? The only way I make it to heaven is if I realize it's about someone else. And if I serve Him, the church, and seek the lost, I'll make it to heaven, just like those in the Bible did. Just like we read about the faithful, I can be counted among them as well. What a blessing. Lord willing, next week we'll pick up with